You can all join palms and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Keeping the palms joined. Palms down. All right, good evening, everybody. Nice to see you all. Thank you for showing up. Anyone here for the first time? As you're here for the first time, what brings you here? That guy. What did that guy tell you? Did he promise you pizza and beer? Flying. Yes. And you? Did you get the same promise? All right. Well, now I know what we have to do. Anybody else? First time? What brings you here? Always somebody. Yeah. These people must care about you. I don't know what it is with friends bringing people. Say again? You heard about that, huh? After midnight, though. Yeah. Anybody else? First time here that didn't come for the rooftop pool? Smart one, first time in the back, because then if you hate it 10 minutes in, you can just sneak out. Nobody knows. These people got to like crawl through people. You know, what brings you here? More of a feeling? Yeah. Do you want to expand on that or just? Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Welcome. Yeah, it's a thing for sure. You know, I don't know what kind of thing, but it's a thing. You know, it's funny. Just for those maybe didn't hear what you said, but you know, the last part of what you said was you got a text and it just kind of aligned at the right time. There's an expression in Buddhism that says, "When the student is ready, the teacher appears." And you'll hear this at the end, but you're not students, I'm not teachers, so this is not meant in that relationship. More in kind of a broader sense that, you know, when the mind and heart are ready to kind of look at things a little bit differently, then it tends to present itself. But, you know, for those of you who've been at this for a while or, you know, 3 months to 20 years or however long, you know, most people will tell you that there was a time in your life for everybody in this room where this stuff, you would have just been like, nah, you know, not for me. For many people, it is that way. And that's because what this practice does is it really requires us to hold up a mirror and reflect back on ourselves, what we do, our thoughts, our words, our actions. Not about what others are doing, but what are we doing? Not about blaming others, but what's our role? Not about pointing the fingers at others, but what can we do differently? And for many people, that's not fun, you know? We don't want to necessarily do that, but that's what this practice really is about. It's about being honest and very genuine, authentic with yourself. It says, hey, what is my role in the life that I'm creating for those, you know, immediately in my life and, you know, surrounding communities? And that can be difficult, you know, really kind of taking time to reflect on, again, what we think, what we say, and what we do. And that's a challenge. And, you know, in Buddhism, we talk about, you know, the practice isn't for everybody. You know, it's a lot easier to just be mean and angry and pissed off all day long at everyone in the world. That's just what we're used to. And to actually change that way of being is really difficult. So Flying would actually be easier, you know. Building a pool on the roof, I've been up there, it's much easier. Yeah. We could have it done in like a week, truly. All right. We're going to start with a meditation practice for those who are, and to those joining virtually, welcome. Glad you're here. Feel free. There's a chat box on your screen. You can say hello there. A couple things to tell you for those who may be here for the first time or sitting in meditation for the first time. Nothing's going to happen to you. Right? You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is this working or not working? Are you doing it right or wrong? You're just going to sit, you're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. This practice is learning to be quiet and still within all of the chaos. So phones ring, dogs bark, babies cry, people cough. It's not the end of the world, right? We're just working on staying present within our own mind and our own way. Posture, just want to be comfortable. If you are on a cushion, often it helps slide into the front third. If you're on a bench or chair, however you're seated, just trying to sit up straight. It's important, again, for those who are new, you're not trying to empty your thoughts. You're not trying to go blank. You're not trying to stop your mind. Your mind will continue to race as much as it always does. I will say things periodically to remind you that you're lost in thought and bring you back to present moment using sensation of breath. I'll guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. Most important, do not expect anything. We're just going to sit and breathe. And starting with the eyes closed, if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths slowly. And eventually settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. We'll start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. Expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Letting go of expectations, letting go of judgments from your practice, just sitting, breathing. Learning to be comfortable in stillness, in quiet, wanting nothing but to sit and breathe. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. And no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths slowly. And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly beginning to move. And most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you'd prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how you sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It has everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was simply a human being, no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. What that means, very simply, for all of us, regardless where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's it. That's what we get. This practice is simply learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to every other 20-minute period of your day. And so all we're working on is closing the gap toward the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. It's not an easy practice. It's not necessarily fun. It's not an escape as often people think it is. If your life is a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess, meditation doesn't necessarily fix that. It helps you become aware of your life that's a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess so you can make changes in your life. This practice is direct perception into the present moment, not trying to run from it, which is what many people do their entire lives. And when you keep running, you get tired. This practice is learning to sit with life as it arises. And some of that is pleasant, and some of that is unpleasant. That's what we get. Once we stop trying to change, fix, control, manipulate everything and everyone outside of us, and we work on changing our mind and our reaction to the world around us, life gets simpler. But it takes time. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's just sitting, breathing, learning to be kind to yourself and everybody you encounter every moment of your life. That's it. And as I said earlier, the practice is simply becoming aware of your own karma. Karma is not what goes around comes around. Karma is not people getting what they deserve. Karma is literally means action. That's what the word means. And it's what we bring into the world. The Buddha taught very clearly, we generate karma three ways: body, speech, mind, thoughts, words, and actions. So this practice at its very core is becoming mindful and aware of everything you think, everything you say, and everything you do, and how that impacts the world around you. And as I spoke about earlier, that's why it's really challenging, because that's what this practice is asking us to do, is to become fully aware every moment, every intention, behind every thought, behind every word, and behind every action. And for many people, that's incredibly difficult, because Many people don't want to spend much time focused on their thoughts and their words and their actions. Most people don't scroll social media all day long looking at what they have thought and what they have said and what they have done. It's all about everybody else. Now, I also want to add, this practice is not about ignoring everything and everyone else. The world is a mess. The world has always been a mess. The world will always be a mess. But the question is, are you a mess? That's what this practice is looking at. Your mess. No offense to any of you who don't have one. So with that, I'll pause. For me, I really prefer to respond to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with. And we'll use the rest of our brief time for questions. Again, for those joining virtually, welcome. Glad you're here. Feel free to, if you have any questions, you can put them on the chat box, and I'll do my best to respond. So we'll open up to questions. Yeah.
So I think things have been pretty stressful in the news and around us, and it's really easy to fall into like a chaotic mind frame.
Yeah.
Where I'm just spiraling into like what the worst thing that could be happening might be happening. Do you have a practice for yourself when you notice yourself maybe, if that ever happened, doing that, where you bring yourself back to reality?
Yeah. I was with you till you said that last part about back to reality, because what you were in was reality to you. What we're always only in is our own reality, which is in fact never reality. But let me back up to the original question, and I might come back to the second part. I was like, you're doing so well. So a couple of things about, the practice. I want to break down some things you said, and the audio picks up pretty well. So I think virtually most people heard that. But the first part of what you said is, when you get lost in the news and the media, and you get, this kind of heightened sense of whatever you're getting. Let me just say that, yes, I understand that that is there. This isn't even for you specifically. This is for everyone. It is very often the case, and I've seen this for the last 15, 20 years, that when things get hectic and chaotic in the world, people often say, when things are so hectic and chaotic in the world. People have been saying that forever. And again, that is not to minimize the extreme cases that, most of us are seeing right now. So again, I'm not minimizing any of that. I sit here in all my place of privilege, as a, heterosexual, white, able-bodied male with every privilege in the book. Nobody's coming for me. I check every box. I never have to live in fear based on all of that. So I understand everything I say. I'm always coming from that place, but at the same time, understanding that as I'm observing what's happening in the world, it has always been a mess. It is a mess, and it will always be a mess. And yes, there are extreme cases at times, right? So I never want to discount that. But to your question about what do you do in the moment when you recognize yourself getting kind of wrapped up and you didn't say spiraling, I think, but that's a word I often hear, and you're kind of spiraling. You can watch the news, social media for 5, 10, 20 minutes and get a pretty good darn sense of what's going on. If you find yourself still glued to it 5 hours later, just common sense says maybe it's time to get up and take a break, right? A lot of this kind of, and I'll get to some specifics, but a lot of kind of this general idea of how do I pull myself out of it? Can you see what's on the wall behind you without looking at it? No. Is it there? Absolutely. And when you want to turn to look at it, turn to look at it. You can come in here 3 times a day, take a look at it in the morning for 5, 10, 15 minutes. Check back in at noon. Take a look at the wall. See what's there for, 10, 15 minutes. Nighttime, if you want to stay up all night and not sleep, go ahead and check it again. Right? But in a very practical sense, and this isn't about ignoring or closing your eyes to what's going on. It never is. But your question is really what I'm hearing at the base of your question, which is what everybody is always dealing with, not just these days, is their own level of mental and emotional health and well-being. And very often people find this kind of self-righteous view that like, if they stop to take care of themselves, then all of a sudden they don't care about anyone else. Oxygen mask, right? On the airplane, what do they tell you to do? Put it on yourself first before the child. Because if you don't take care of yourself, how can you help anyone? So begin to just practically look at, is this becoming too much? Don't be afraid to step away for an hour. The mess will still be there when you get back. And I mean that with all due respect. So from a, does that make sense so far? Yeah. So from a practice standpoint, as far as just meditation, Buddhist practice, understanding impermanence. Everything is changing all the time. Whatever the conditions are today will be different tomorrow. They were different last year. They'll be different a year from now. They were different 100 years from now. They'll be different 100, years ago. Impermanence. Everything is always changing. Things can get better. Things can get worse. So you practice the understanding of impermanence. You understand compassion. Feel compassion that people are suffering everywhere. Not just the people you agree with, right? And I'm looking at you because you asked the question, but I'm speaking to every single person in this room. Everybody is suffering, and not just the people that you agree with. The people you disagree with are also suffering. You might think, well, why? And that's because you're not thinking about them. You're thinking about you. To your question about reality, right? Buddhist teachings is ultimately touching on the true nature of reality, which we can never perceive unless we have a, fully enlightened mind that we're operating from. But we don't. We have a mind that's filled with greed and anger and ignorance, and we roam around thinking all day long that we are what? I mean, with all your views about what's going on, you think you're what? Right. Otherwise, you wouldn't be so pissed off and angry all day long. Isn't that amazing that you're right and everybody else who disagrees with you is wrong? That's fascinating. Anyone else in here feel that way? Again, you're just brave enough to ask the question. But that's the reality, is that we are stuck in our reality. And our reality, that's tough to say, is not the truth. That is our perception of reality. We talk about this a lot, Sunday, the Heart Sutra, that is our entire life. All we are doing is perceiving something, and we're seeing it from our own lens, our own perspective, our own experiences, our own upbringing, our own views. That's all we see. And I'm not suggesting that we abandon them or that we stop fighting for them. Please do not stop fighting. Do not stop fighting for what you feel is right. That's not the teaching here. I think the Buddha was an activist. Siddhartha, he spent 45 years. I mean, he became, called the Buddha at 35 years old. And for 45 years, he roamed around India teaching people to be kind and compassionate. He spent 45 years on a mission to teach loving kindness and compassion to all people, not just the people he agreed with. I mean, I think he was an activist to me, but he fought with love and kindness, not with hatred and anger. Thich Nhat Hanh, great example. As you engage in the world, as he did with Martin Luther King, fighting for equality, do it with love and kindness, not hatred and anger. And understand that your perception of reality is just yours. You don't have to abandon it. You don't have to give it up. You don't have to agree with everybody else. But understand that everybody has their view and opinion, and we're stuck in ours. So understanding the practice of non-self, which is really what I'm talking about, is that we attach to our story of what we think things should be like. And again, not to abandon that, but still understand how stuck we are to it. And lastly, I'll say from a meditation standpoint, if you think about when we're practicing meditation, ultimately what we're working on is thought arises, release the thought, back to breath. Thought arises, release the thought, back to breath. Thought arises, release the thought, back to breath. That's the practice. The practice isn't to have thoughts and stick with them for 20 minutes, which is what most people do in meditation. Thoughts arise, they sit with them, and they just ponder random aimless thoughts for 20 minutes. Then the bell hits, and they're like, oh, that was cool. But that's not meditation. That's just sitting and thinking for 20 minutes. Meditation is training the mind to be present. So when you observe and you find yourself getting spiraled into whatever direction you find yourself angry, that anger is an emotion coming from thoughts. Come back to sensation of breath. There's no emotion in sensation of breath. And again, this is not about being emotionless. But the question is, how do you control yourself in that moment? Come back to sensation of breath. The breath is emotionless. And it gives you a break from being wrapped up in all the madness. So, hope that helps.
Thank you.
Yeah. What else? Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about merit, gaining merit, transferring merit? I understand a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So the question was, can I talk about merit, gaining merit, transferring merit? So to put it into context, specifically what you're asking about for those who are maybe new or haven't seen, at least when I do it or when we do it here, those who do it here, I'll start with explaining what we actually do. So then when I talk about it, it'll make more sense for those who haven't seen it. But at the end here today, I'm going to ask people, join palms, and we'll do a transfer of merit. And then what I'll say is, may any merit gained from this practice be transferred to all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. So that is the idea behind that's what's happening during transfer of merit for those who haven't had it. Now, within Buddhism, you have 2,500 years. The Buddha was from India, right? Lived 2,500 years ago, 500 years before Christ. He died at the age of 80. A couple hundred years after he died, it goes south into Thailand, Laos, Vietnam, Cambodia around the turn of the century. 500 years later, goes north, China, Japan, Korea. About 1,000 years after he died, Buddhism goes into Tibet, and it kind of develops into Tibetan Buddhism. So you have three major schools of Buddhism: Theravada, Hinayana, Mahayana, and Vajrayana. Without getting into all that stuff, which is kind of irrelevant, there's three major schools of Buddhism as it's spread over the years. And so within all of that, you're going to see so many different types and practices of Buddhism influenced by culture. So many different rituals. Here, Dharma Bum style, we opened Dharma Bum Temple 19 years ago to kind of strip away the ritual and the culture that to us we saw as, for me, coming from a Taiwanese Buddhist background, 99% Taiwanese community. I loved it dearly. I loved practicing there. I loved being in that environment. But the average Western person would walk in, they'd see the bowing, the chanting, the robes, all the stuff in another language, and they're like, yeah, I'm good, So we stripped all of that away. But there are certain pieces of it to me that I still practice and share, a lot of it still personally, but then even publicly when I lead. And the transfer of merit was one of them. And that very much comes from this cultural teaching within Pure Land Buddhism, within traditional kind of Taiwanese Buddhism, where this idea that as we practice, we are karmically accruing merit. Think of it as like good deeds, for lack of a better word. And so this idea is that when the Buddha died, they say he neutralized his karma, right? No positive karma, no negative karma, just neutral. And I don't like to look at karma as positive or negative, but no good, no bad, just present. And so this idea of accruing merit is that as we do good things, then good things may happen. But as good things are happening and we're maybe getting stuff from good things that happen, we give it away. But then the crazy thing is, as you give stuff away, you get more. And then you continue to give away. This idea of merit is saying, I have accrued merit. Think of it as like, if you're a dog and you got lots of treats, you got a lot of treats. You've been a good dog. What do you get? Lots of treats. So, but what about all the other dogs out there that have no treats? Let's take care of all them because they're hungry. They're starving. Maybe they haven't been good. Maybe they didn't earn their treat, but you know what? They still need treats. So you give it away. It's this constant receiving and giving, receiving and giving. And I like to look at it also that kind of meshes in for those who come are familiar with a metta loving kindness practice, Tonglen practice, this idea of sending and receiving love and compassion. This simple idea of just sending love and compassion to others. That if I am so fortunate to be blessed with whatever I may have, then why can't I give it to others? It's also a practice of non-self that, I didn't need 30 shirts. 3 were just fine. So yeah, just kind of some thoughts on it, but it is very specific to certain cultures in different ways with Buddhism. But ultimately it is the practice of non-self, because we exist completely differently from how we perceive ourselves. And we're just a physical body with a consciousness, other than, a little bit of clothes, a little bit of food. What more do you really need? Not what do you want, not what you convince yourself you need. You know, often people say, well, you need this, you need that. You don't need those things. You want those things. And we've been conditioned to think we need them. But ultimately, we don't need much. We're just conditioned to think we do, you know? The Buddha was a prince, left the wealthy life, roamed the base of the Himalayan mountains with 7 objects, you know, a robe, a bowl, stone to shave a blade, shaved his head with the blade, you know, needle, thread, sewed the robe. Simple. That was it. And as I always say, I got 7 items sitting on me right now. And again, for those who are new to Buddhism, the teaching is not get rid of all your stuff, right? If you get rid of all your stuff, you're probably still going to be miserable, and even more because now you have no stuff. And you're still attached to your stuff. So the teaching is not go get rid of your stuff. The teaching is to understand how much you are attached to your stuff. Do you need it? And could you help others out there? If you had 100 shirts, if you gave away 50, you would still be just fine. And there's 50 people, there's 10,000 people living on the streets downtown right now that would love 50 new shirts. So that's really what the teaching is about, finding a balance in our life, not get rid of all your stuff, but recognizing what do you really need? You know, so I think of when I transfer merit, same idea. Yeah.
You said there's 3 major schools of Buddhism.
Yeah.
Is this temple more aligned with the future school, or is it more like a hybrid?
Yeah. So what was the last part, a hybrid or?
Or an offshoot?
Oh, offshoot. Okay. Yeah. So the question was, I mentioned that there were 3 different schools of Buddhism, and is this temple aligned with one of them, or is it a hybrid? So to sum it up, and I know I touched on it very briefly, but the original teaching of the Buddha, those first couple hundred years, roughly, I'm not a scholar, but I'll give you a general outline of it. I don't study Buddhism that way at all. I really don't like to study. I'm just a, you know, foolish practitioner, and I really hate reading. But and I'm very serious. At the time of the Buddha, in those first couple hundred years, it initially was called Theravada, which meant of the elders, right? Then about 500 years later, when it goes into, you know, China, Japan, Korea, it's called Mahayana. Or I'm sorry, the original one was called Hinayana, lesser vehicle, Yana's vehicle. Then goes into North, they call it Mahayana, greater vehicle. They came together and they realized they shouldn't call one school greater and the other school lesser, so they changed the name Hinayana to Theravada. So Theravada, Hinayana, you'll see them interchangeable depending on what you're reading. But Theravada means of the elders, and they're kind of talking about the Pali Canon when the Buddha first spoke, and it was all memorized for like 100 years, and they came together and said something to the effect of, this is some good stuff, we should write it down. So they began to transcribe it on palm leaves. Then you have the Mahayana Buddhism, and then the Vajrayana. Vajra is diamond, Yana is vehicle. So you had the lesser vehicle, greater vehicle, diamond vehicle. And those are the 3 major schools. Within them, you have kind of some offshoots, and to use your words, and some schools that expand there. But to your question about what are we, when we started Dharma Bum Temple, we started it end of 2006, 19 years ago, to introduce all schools of Buddhism to those who show up. And when I say all, I mean, you know, very genuine, authentic, not just some random new age stuff that people call Buddhism, but like genuine, authentic, you know, specific lineage practices. And so we have always from day one not been a Mahayana temple or a Theravada temple or a Vajrayana temple. We're not a Zen specific or metta, loving kindness specific. We offer all the different schools of Buddhism. And the other key is that we're not led by monks or nuns. We don't have a head guru or anything like that. We're just unenlightened, ignorant fools leading a bunch of, no offense, other unenlightened, ignorant fools. But with that being said, we are very serious that the practice is the classes that we lead and those who do share the practice, that it is grounded in a very genuine, authentic lineage. And it's not just some shit that people are making up, because there's a lot of that out there too. But, you know, Monday night we have a Zen practice. This is Tuesday where I touch on the core teachings. Wednesdays is a loving kindness metta practice, which comes out of Theravada. The Monday is more of a Mahayana. Thursday we do a Tibetan practice. Friday night, you know, we do a lot of recovery classes as well. So does that answer your question? Yeah, for sure. People always ask, like, so what kind of Buddhist are you? And I'm like, the good kind? I don't know. Yeah.
So I'm still on my journey of practicing patience,
Yeah.
and calmness, and all that. But kind of like what you mentioned right now, you know,
Yeah.
Siddhartha gave everything up, and then, us kind of how attached are we are to things, and is it, I guess it's like, is it human nature that somehow we want to go back to the chaos? For instance, gluing yourself to the TV, watching the news because you need to know what's happening, and you know it's chaos, but how do you, that's the question.
Very few things, if anything, is human nature. It's very easy for us to, and again, I always appreciate those who ask the questions because it's vulnerable to sit in a room of all these people and express that. And so my responses are, as you know by now well enough, but not meant to personally attack anyone, but they often kind of sound that way because it's just how I am, The idea behind this kind of human nature for Buddhist teachings, everything is conditioned, Maybe there's some animal instinct nature stuff. I don't study nature versus nurture enough, but from my understanding of Buddhist teachings, everything is conditioned, meaning when we are born, I talked about this on Saturday, but when we're born and, or any baby, they're crying. When a baby cries, what do they typically need? Attention, food, changed, done, end of story, right? They need to be held, they need to be changed, they need to be fed. When those three things happen, apparently, I've never had one of those, but when they happen, they stop crying, right? Until the next time they need to be held, fed, or changed. Babies learn from the get-go to scream and cry to get what they need. We are all just big babies, man. We are still screaming and crying to get what we need. And because we've been doing it our whole lives, we use the terms of, well, it's just human nature and you even gave the example of to glue yourself to the TV. When you said that, I'm like, I don't have a TV. I don't glue myself to it, even if I did. That's not really, this is the same thing as a TV, and it's never more than 3 inches from me. So I don't want to sound like I'm disconnected. This is the TV, but no, it's not human nature. It's your conditioned mind. It's your mind that wants to have control over every little thing that's happening, that lives in fear and panic. And for many, rightfully so. I'm not suggesting that these are bad things, but they're not healthy. Again, not human nature, conditioned to look at it all day long, to post about it all day long, to talk about it all day long. When do you have time to eat and breathe and rest? How are you taking care of yourself? And again, I get it. Loving kindness and compassion is the teaching. It's pretty easy to figure out what that means. Loving kindness and compassion for all beings, all time, all space, all directions, all sentient beings, all humans, all animals, all life, all of them, everywhere. That is the practice. Not to pick apart those we like and those we don't like. So every person in here has a view about what's going on with everything. And every person in here, many people, I shouldn't say that. Well, yes, every person in here has a view about what's going on. When people disagree with that view, then you hate them. Are you any different than anybody else? These are really the questions as a practitioner I suggest you ask yourself. Is your hatred towards the people that you disagree with justified? That hate, does it do you any good? It really doesn't. Hate breeds hate. Tough stuff. Yeah. There was a monk after the Vietnam War, Buddhist monk, and they asked him, what was your greatest fear? And he said, my greatest fear was losing compassion for those who were torturing me. Now, we're not there as unenlightened, ignorant fools. Again, no offense to the enlightened ones in the room. But to just kind of, in a way, and again, this isn't you. I hear this all day long. To kind of use this kind of cop out and well, it's just human nature to be angry and pissed off at everyone and to be glued to the TV all day long. No, We have learned that. What would be a beautiful practice is to have love and compassion for everybody, all the time. Maybe that's closer to human nature than the gluing ourselves to the TV. It's just harder to do. You know? I mean, when we're a baby and we're needing to be fed, held, or changed, do we really care who picks us up and feeds us or holds us and changes us? Doesn't matter. Maybe we should start looking at it that way and stop labeling. Very easy to do that. Yeah.
What's the Buddhist approach to fear, like rational or irrational?
Rational? Nothing is rational. I mean, what do you mean by rational? Like logical in your head?
You
Huh?
know, scared, like fear of death.
Oh, so is your question, what's the Buddhist view on the fear of death?
Sure.
Okay. You backed out of that one real quick. Yeah. So it's a couple things. We're all going to die. In case you haven't figured that out by now. We're all going to die. It could be tonight. It could be 100 years from now. But it is happening to every one of us. What is there to be afraid of? It is happening. There's a sutra where it's called like the mustard seed, where the Buddha asked, this woman came to the Buddha with the child that had just died, small, child, and she wanted the Buddha to like bring him back to life, the child back to life, as if the Buddha had some magical powers, which he didn't. He was just some dude. But he said, please go around and collect a mustard seed from every house that has not known death. She came back, nothing. We all die. The question to me, really, as my first teacher always said, the Buddhist nun, she said, Jeff, when you ask questions, don't look for answers. Learn to change the question. So for me, the question really is not fear of death. The question is fear, period. Because death isn't the only thing that people are afraid of. And in many cases, I've found as a practitioner and, sitting in places like this for a long time, people are more afraid to live than they are to die. Dying is happening. All your fear in the world ain't going to change that, but are you living? And how are you living? Are you afraid to live? To be authentic and genuine to who you think you are, to actually do things you want to do and not get stuck doing what the whole world wants you to do and what all your family and friends and blah, blah, blah think you should be. Can you just live? Because you are going to die, right? One of the first teachings I learned at that temple was coming from this book and this general idea that, we have this, it was a book called Graceful Exits. And it wasn't a Buddhist book per se, but it was about kind of great spiritual teachers and leading up to their death and what it was like. And I remember one of the things I took from that, looking back on it, was this idea of, we have this rest in peace expression, right? But if you're going to rest in peace, what does that mean? How would you have to live if you're going to rest peacefully? So we're all worried about resting in peace. Does anybody live in peace? I don't know about you, but if I can't live peacefully, I'm definitely not worried about, resting peacefully. Like, I'm dead. Shit's done. But I want to rest then. I want to be at peace now and still create peaceful chaos. Absolutely, 100%. Fear, acronym I love, false evidence appearing real. You ever been afraid of something that actually turned out better than you thought? Some things turn out worse. Some things turn out better. But for me, being afraid of death is absolutely worthless because you're going to die. Just don't be afraid to live. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, which one of you two fight it out?
Okay. I kind of wanted to piggyback on the previous question about fear, maybe not as like an emotional experience.
About what?
Fear.
Oh, fear. Sorry.
But as a biological threat response.
Yeah.
No.
No, yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you lost me biology, so.
Well, I'm just kind of curious, I don't know if there's a question about that, but maybe that's what he was, it's less about I'm irrationally afraid versus my body is having a physiological.
I don't think he was asking about that, but that's a good take. I could be wrong.
In the sense, I guess uncertainty to take any action really just because you're afraid of consequence, positive or negative.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, to take any action because you're afraid of consequence, positive or negative, the practice truly is to recognize that the law of cause and effect, that every action and every inaction or non-action or whatever the right word is, has an impact. So not doing something is also doing something. And that has an effect. So I think the important part is to look at what is our action that we take or don't take. Again, not taking action is still an action. And is every action we take coming from a place of loving kindness, compassion, generosity, wisdom, or is it coming from greed, anger, ignorance? The second cause of suffering, greed, anger, ignorance. So it's really less about what the action, for me as a practitioner, it's less about what the action is and more about looking at what is the intention behind the action. And if my intention behind the action is coming from a place of greed, anger, and ignorance, which the Buddha said is the cause of our suffering, then there's my answer. Is my action coming from a place of generosity, compassion, and wisdom? And very often, I mean, it's as simple as, do y'all know when you do things that you really shouldn't do? Most people do. Right? Most people do. Do those things less. Yeah. But yeah, biology, you always lose me at biology. I told you I don't like to read. So yeah, go ahead.
I carry a lot of anger and hate towards people in authority who are killing innocent civilians. Yeah. Not just in this country, all over the world. Yeah. And I just find it extremely hard to have love and compassion for them. Yeah. I want them to suffer, and I want them to feel, the same hurt that they've caused to other people. Yeah. And I'm just finding it really hard to cope with the love and compassion for everyone. Yeah. Idea. How do you do that? Yeah. I get it. So a couple things. I came into Buddhism 22, 23 years ago because I was an angry, depressed, miserable kid, drinking beer, smoking pot, getting into fights, incredibly depressed, pissed off, angry at everybody, and just spent most of my teenage, adolescent years beating the shit out of people. I didn't murder anyone. I didn't kill anyone. But if I had been raised in a different environment, different family upbringing, different, if I wasn't raised without love and compassion from my parents and I was raised in a different way, I easily could have murdered people with that amount of anger and hatred and rage that I had as a kid. Right? Now, receiving more anger and hatred towards me in whatever situation never helped. It only made things worse. So for me, this practice was first and foremost learning to have love and compassion for myself so then I could stop being an asshole and stop spitting on people and stop beating people up and stop being a bully. I'm not kidding. Like I talk about these things every so often and often people are like, oh, you seem so sweet. And no, I was an asshole who treated people like shit. No joke. Just walked up to random people. If I didn't like the way they looked or they looked at me funny, I just punched them. Like I'm totally serious. I've spent 22 years volunteering in prisons. I've spent 15, 20 years in the military environment. I've been around a lot of people filled with hatred and anger and rage who've killed people. And what they need is not more hatred and anger and rage to stop killing people. They need love and compassion so they can stop killing people. I'm not suggesting this is easy, but I'm also not one who's just going to default and say, well, let's just hate the people who are hating people, because that won't get you there. I'm not saying I know what gets you there, but I know that if I have that hate in my heart, nothing good comes from that. Nothing. And then I'm miserable all day long. You ever done something really harmful to somebody else? No?
Not physically.
No. Let's not spin this. I mean, you're asking, let's play along here. I'm loving where you're going with this. But what I'm going to throw at you is not going to be easy. But I want you, if you're going to ask a question like that, I'm going to come back to the best of my ability to help you. Is my response to you going to solve everything you're talking about? No. But what's your name? Harmon. But my response to you is not about everyone else right now. My response is, how can I keep Harmon from going out and harming himself or somebody else? Because in this moment, that's all that matters to me. Do you understand that? So what I'm about to say to you is coming from that place. And what I've already said is coming from that place. So my question to you again is, have you ever done something that harmed someone? Yes. Okay. And when you caused harm to somebody else, mentally, emotionally, whatever it might have been, how were you feeling and what led you to do that?
I felt remorse.
I mean, before though, not after. I'm not comparing. Let's not justify and compare. I'm asking you, Harmon, when you did things that hurt other people, prior to doing that, what sort of place were you in that led you to do something that harmed somebody? Anger. Okay. Again, I'm not comparing you to anybody else, so drop that parallel. But you were angry and you did things that harmed people. When you are no longer angry, do you do less things that harm others? You, Harmon. Okay. So to me, it sounds like Harmon having love and compassion for himself and other people expressing love and compassion towards Harmon might actually make you have love and compassion for others more, right? And if you have that, you might want to harm other people less. See, the world is wrapped up right now in who they like and don't like. This isn't about likes and dislikes. This is about people living with hatred and anger. And this message 2,500 years ago to overcome hatred and anger with love and compassion is no joke. Can you do it? Maybe not. Is it easy? No. Having love and compassion for those who are harming others is not about agreeing with them. It's not dismissing their actions. It's not saying what they're doing is okay. It's actually, to me, the best way to stop what they're freaking doing. Hatred breeds hatred. Violence breeds violence.
Is it a bad thing to let anger be your driving force to resist a tyrannical regime?
So it depends on the two things we don't talk about here at Dharma Bum Temple are religion and politics. You know why? Because those are the two things that divide everybody, right? And people come here to get away from all that stuff, but I'm still going to respond to your question. Because we all know what the world's sitting with, right? So there's a great book. Are you familiar with Thich Nhat Hanh's teachings? And well, let me back up for a second. I'm going to close with this thought because we're just about out of time, but I want to finish this because this is super important. And again, I appreciate you asking this. How much, if any, do you know about Buddhism, or is this new?
I'm very new.
Okay, great, perfect. So why not jump in the deep end with this, right? You're like, screw that Buddhist stuff. They want me to have love and compassion for everybody. I'm out, right? That's fine. I get it. Like I said, this stuff isn't for everybody. But let me say again, this practice is love and compassion is not about saying what other people are doing is right or okay or dismissing it or that they should keep doing it. That is not the teaching. Thich Nhat Hanh, great Vietnamese Buddhist monk, nominated for Nobel Peace Prize for his work with Martin Luther King, wrote a book titled An's Anger. It's a children's book. And it's literally like this angry monster. And at the end of the book, I'll save you the reading, beautiful illustration, turns him into a beautiful flower. And as the beautiful flower is actually able to transform people's lives, but not from the anger. So your question around, in essence, what I'm hearing you say is anger justified to stop things. I know this might sound as a surprise, but you can actually stop things without anger. And this is ultimately what the teaching was about. Your anger does not have to stay as anger. You can transform your anger. You can be pissed off. Be pissed off. But what do you do with that? When you engage to create change, are you coming from a place of thinking that you're just better than everybody? Because they don't think so. That's what people miss. We only see things from our lens. And seeing things from other people's lens, again, does not mean they are right. It does not justify what they do. It does not dismiss what they do. Again, I've sat with people who've murdered, who've raped, who've done some horrific things. And if they had more love and compassion in their lives, they would stop murdering, they would stop raping, potentially. This is not kind of a one-size-fits-all type deal. And this is real heavy stuff to jump into day one. But I come back to what I said at the beginning, and I'll close with this thought. You, Harmon, being fueled by anger is only going to cause you suffering. That if you can transform that anger to compassion, you can be just as aggressive. I mean, I'm a fighter. I've been fighting my whole life, and I still fight, but not from a place of anger and hatred. From a place of believing truly that love and compassion will change things, not more hatred and anger, especially when the people that you're talking about probably are filled with hatred and anger. If the people that spread hate actually had love in their hearts, maybe they would. The challenge is they think they have love in their hearts. But we're out of time. So we'll join palms. Yeah, no, thank you. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. All right. Before you all head out, our Dharma Bum host, Eddie, has a few announcements for us. Thanks, Eddie.
Hello, everyone. I'm tonight's host, Eddie. We opened the Dharma Bum Temple 19 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those who lead are not nuns, monks, gurus, masters, or teachers, and are not looking for students. They're simply practitioners sharing their interpretation of the practice. Every night we have different classes led by different people from various Buddhist traditions. We have a recovery sangha that meets several times a week for anyone with addiction, and a food redistribution program is every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. We have classes and programs every day, and everything we offer here is always free. The full schedule is on our website and also posted in the entryway above the shoe rack. We have a lending library. If you see a book you like, feel free to borrow it and then bring it back whenever you are done with it. Also been reminded that this Saturday is the family sangha day. Kids are welcome. I think it starts at 11. I'm not positive.
Yep.
Please straighten your seat or cushion before you head out. If a few people can stay to close and latch the windows, that would be helpful. Thank you for being here. We wish you well. Hope to see you all again.
Thanks, Ed.